Welcome back, everybody, to the Absolutely Pickled podcast. I'm Pen.
And I'm Lee.
And we're Absolutely Pickled.
What the f***? That was terrible.
Welcome back, Dr. Simon Marshall, Dr. Si, as we like to call him, although apparently you've had some trouble at Starbucks. Tell us why.
I have. It's not that a common name in the US, and sometimes they write my name Simon on the cup and I can't see, and then they call it out, and they usually call out Seaman, and then I have to walk across a crowded Starbucks with mothers and kids and adults saying their mother calling their son Seaman. How? What? And I'm like, no, it's almost. So anyway, yes, I'm quite used to.
Oh.
I'm quite used to that. I didn't finish the end of that joke, but
no, you didn't need to. We got it. Do you remember, actually, sidebar? You guys have both grew up in England. Do you remember Captain Pugwash?
Of course.
Yes, and masturbate semen stains.
What
in the world?
How was that? I mean, how did that get through? And we all watched it. Captain
Masturbates was named after Jeremy Bates, the tennis player.
Was he?
No, I just made that up.
No, I can say the one's a lot later.
Oh my god, hilarious! All
Wimbledon was the best thing. He was like advantage masturbates. That was always a classic at Wimbledon. I used to love that one when they were prim and proper sitting there.
That's right. All of our schoolboy humour comes out.
Exactly,
and everyone's like.
All right, well, so we've got Simon captive. He can't leave. He's chained to his desk right now with some fabulous. I feel like I'm underdressed with you two with your glasses on.
Listen, what do you mean changed? It was only last week that I was on last time, so I do change.
Changed to your desk.
Oh, changed. I thought it changed.
No.
Okay, no.
I don't know where she's going with the chains. I like. Let's just move along.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry, because I've got a lot. No. Let's not do that. Okay, so we wanted to pick your brain again, if we may. And I've got a couple of listeners with two fabulous questions to ask you. But first of all, I know, Lee, you had another thought, because obviously, and they only come up every so often with you, the thoughts. So we wanted to make sure that we captured that you'd had a thought. And made sure Simon heard.
I did have we captured that, and it was based on our last conversation that we had that sparked this thought, and I've managed to keep it for this long. I wrote it down, put it on the fridge, bathroom mirror, did everything. But
while breathing,
while breathing.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned in like with the bully on the court, right? In her little chimp brain. And we all have a chimp, right? Mine seems to fluctuate from 18 months to 3 years old. And it doesn't seem to evolve, right? And it's that knee-jerk reaction that it's like, how does, and other people do a much better job of training this chimp. And I don't know if they go to obedience school or they found a Groupon for it. I'm not sure. Or they just went to the zoo. But how does one, because it does affect you in competition, whether it's a line call that didn't go your way, you call the ball out, I thought it was in, I'm like, whoa, and it's like that huge knee-jerk fight reaction instead of going, maybe I did hit the ball out, or maybe them wanting the ball to be out and the ball actually being out are two different things. And like those are certain, or a ref makes the wrong call, something, and it's like that knee-jerk reaction that sort of sends you down this spiral that's hard to recover from, and then all of a sudden back you go. And it's like we touched on the breathing, but it's like that chimp part of the brain is like gone into full self-destruct mode.
And I will just add, unlike tennis where you have not anymore actually because they have a clock, but you have a bit of breathing time between points. Pickleball, don't know if you've ever watched it, site, it is so fast paced. You're going from point to point to point to point. So you can get pissed off and 2 points go by before you've checked yourself. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's true for you, Lee, but because it's
like, I mean, for me, I typically try to take a time out in that moment because I need that extra time. But sometimes I just work myself up into a worse frenzy and that time out, that extra minute now is gone has been used very inappropriately versus using it appropriately to be like, okay, let's calm down. It's that point is not going to make or break the match. Don't you dare let it, right? But yet inadvertently, it's when if you ask how the match went, you're like, oh, she hooked me at 5-4. Can you believe that? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it was 5-4.
Yeah.
And even if it happened at 10-9, like there were other events that got you to 10-9.
Yeah.
So that one thing is not the determinant factor, but yet we make it this, you know, this mountain, this. So how do we train this?
It's probably one of the most universal phenomenon in sport, right? That we're talking about clogging mental toilets. That's probably one of the most common across a bunch of sports. The more obviously sports where you have a lot of teammates, or there's a lot of uncontrolled factors in it, like ball sports or something like pickleball. Very different than just like running a marathon or cycling and so on. So the strategies actually do differ. But the good news is that when we talk about that sort of part of you that gets angry and is a bit like a toddler, we call it the chimp brain. But it's not so much a physical location in a brain. It's more of a network that responds to threats to our ego, or threats to being dissed or ridiculed, or anything that changes where we might sit in some sort of hierarchy of attractiveness, shaggability, excellence in sport, the man, the top seed, whatever it happens to be. When anything threatens that, that part of us comes out. And I will say that folks who have and we're all born, I should say, with different levels of that agitation that's like built in, like the idle speed of that little chimp. So some people have a very low, no matter what you do, they never really, they're not competitive, they don't really react there, they're just like, oh, come on, you just want to shake them, you know. Other people are, you know, you look at them wrong and they're out the car, want to fight you over the Walmart parking space or whatever. So all of us have different levels, and so recognizing what yours is. And I will say that the people who do best in sport have more angry, more active chimps, right?
The Walmart fighters. The Walmart fighters do better.
That's right. Well, so then it's the raw materials are there, but how we use them and act them and shape them and funnel them becomes the big factor. And so often what happens is that when that part of our brain takes charge or hijacks the rest of our brain, it's really hard to kind of get out of that mindset. And there's two reasons, is because evolutionary biology has given your brain two weapons to make sure that little tantruming child inside you will have a good chance of winning, or winning the day, meaning as far as what it wants you to do, leave, hit, steal, all the things that are not socially acceptable, that are just like groaning at you, once you do them. And that one of those things is that it thinks way quicker than your rational frontal cortex brain, the part that can think, no, I do this, I'm planning. It reacts very quickly. In fact, about 5 to 6 times quicker. So by the time you're at that point of giving the opponent what for, or that train has already left the station, like adrenal glands are firing, HPA axis in the brain with all the neuromodulators, they're flowing, you're just prime now. And it's hard to just like walk yourself down off that ledge. There are some things that you can do, but that's one of the things that it does. It does very quickly. It's already active. The second thing that it does is the moment it gets activated, it secretes other hormones and neuromodulators that placate the rational part of your brain, almost like numbs it from acting rationally. So this is totally counterintuitive, right? You're thinking, I'm in this place where I'm reacting, clearly overreacting. My life isn't a threat. It's a fucking game, right? What does it matter? But unfortunately, the part of your brain that can act responsibly and logically and has been almost like one hand has been tied behind its back by this reaction. And the reason for that is because it's a terrible survival strategy, evolutionary wise, to start to want to know more and approach stress versus avoid stress, right? Who's going to walk towards, if you're logical, say, oh my God, I think they're holding a gun or a knife or whatever. I think it could be a pen. It could be, let me just go up and have a look. that logical to try is a terrible survival strategy. You need to get the fuck out.
Right.
So
Yep, it was a gun.
exactly. So your brain,
What?
that little tantruming part, has
bollocks.
been designed
Wrong.
to bully you into subservience so that you listen to it.
Ah.
But so here's the clue, right? Here's the trick: is that it's just a game, and even if you're earning a living from doing it, you're not. It's not life or death, right? It's still just a game, and so what you've got to try and do is practice techniques that walk back that little reaction of that chimp. Know when it's happening before the train's already left the station, so I can walk it down. We talk about the physiologic sigh breath. There are other things you can do as well. Or if it's already left the station, then we have a phrase for it in everyday language called "we shoot from the hip," right? We just like we get out, we respond to the email, and we respond on Twitter or on Instagram to that thing. And if only if I'd have waited 24 hours or 30 seconds, that little physiological soup that's paralyzing and just eventually dissipates. Now you can help it dissipate even quicker by doing some things, but it will eventually dissipate. So the gap between the stimulus, we're using some psychological terms here, sorry, the gap between the stimulus, the woman or the umpire, whoever it is that's agitating you, the road rager, and the response, what you do about it, the goal is to make that as long as possible without it being weird or awkward, right? So if someone is in your face and you are just like not saying anything, that could make them even angrier. So that's not appropriate. But you want to try, wherever possible, give yourself as much time as possible. Even if you do nothing with that time, you just let the time pass before you react or respond, right? So a bad call or a bad play might mean I'm going to walk beyond the baseline and then back and then confront it. I'm just giving myself 10 seconds, 12 seconds to at least dissipate a little bit of that agitation as possible. So that would be the technique. Yeah.
When you can't.
And would you do the sigh breath as you're walking away?
As you can do the side breath, if you remember. So this is why it's good to, if you're playing doubles and you know your partner very well, and if you're not playing doubles, you just write in a Sharpie on the inside of your wrist, you know, sigh breath or SB or whatever you want to call it, breathe, or something to remind you, something outside of your head that you can focus. But your partner can play that role for you as well. But they can remind you without pissing you off, you know, like focus on this, what to focus on, or they see you doing it. So when they're walking towards you, you do the breath. So they see you do, oh shit, that reminds me, rather than I'm already agitated. Right. Now you're telling me to calm down. Fuck you. I'm going to, you know what I mean? That makes me worse. So you've got to do it in a way. So stressful, agitated people, whilst their attention is narrowed, because that's one of the conditions of it, right? It's like choking. All you can see is this thing. If you're in that spot, if you're in that, it's a very precious and valuable thing to do. And you model the behavior that you want versus tell them, because they get defensive and anxious. So the more you can show the response that you want them to be like, we know that agitation and calm is contagious. In fact, motivation is contagious. If I hate embroidery and I go to a week-long, I grin and bear it, and I go to a week-long embroidery class with people who love embroidery, I will start to enjoy embroidery, right? Anything I don't like, if I'm around people who I can see are enjoying it, I start to enjoy it. And so this is a fairly universal phenomenon. It's the same for these sorts of things. It's hard to be angsty around calm people. Now, and so on. So you can kind of play with that a little bit. So this also goes for how you choose your partners, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So on that note, is it better to have opposites as partners? If somebody is very chill, I go from a performance level. I know I want to make the crowd cheer. I want to play the dream shot. So I need someone real consistent and steady that keeps us in the point so that I don't fuck it up early on, right? But I'm not thinking about it from a mental standpoint. But is it better if you are quite impulsive and whatever to have a calm thing? I mean, do two calm players together do better? Do two really
opposites.
animated people do better? I don't know. Is there? Do you
Yeah,
know?
I think there are so many other there. When you look, when you
Well, yeah,
judge do better in terms of the performance, did you win or lose? There
yeah,
are so many factors going into that, like just the fact that, you know, whether you're left or right-handed, tactically how you work together might overpower any of that. We
right.
do know from the research on teams, any sport that has more than 2 or 3 people in, so pairs would doubles would work for this, is that you don't need to, successful teams don't need to like one another. In fact, successful teams can hate one another and still be really successful. So
Yeah,
you don't need friendship. Now, of course, we're not doing it for a living, and we're doing it hopefully to be good citizens and enjoy the game and the rest of it. So you do want to play with nice people, but it's not a requirement. But what is important is that we all become unglued under pressure by our strengths, not our weaknesses, right? That's another little weird quirk. So in other words, if I'm really agitated and confident and up for it, and I'm one of those, I've got one of those chimps, that which is a strength in, like, I can go in and fucking, that is going to be the thing that unglues me, not the bit that I'm not good at. So if you have a tendency to be like a high need for control, like the player that you talked about, their need for control, which helps them be organized and disciplined and dedicated, will eventually be their undoing in performance environments in sport. And likewise, if you are, you know, so calm and easy ozy, you can take the pressure, you can, you know, free climb a half dome or something. You've got this. Where do they get that from? That also can undo you when you are not agitated, or you need to be agitated and active, or you need to be sort of up for it. So usually it's those strengths that come on that unglue us.
so interesting.
Interesting. Because like sometimes, like when I get unglued and I start, it's almost like I have this out of body experience, and rational me is seeing this irrational chimp version of me just go blah, 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 and I'm going, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And the body not listening, and it's just going, carrying on. The logic part of it going, this is stupid, this is pointless, this is a waste of time, this is only going to hurt you, not make you better. And it's like, shut up.
I know.
I'm going to keep going, you know, whether it's an argument and a point in life and relationships. And it's like, what is going on? Like, how do I become this infantile version of me that I know. That I hate, you know?
Well, you've really hit on there a really, whether you knew it or not, a very profound and significant point in psychology writ large, which is what gets us in trouble is these two or competing voices in our heads, right? Okay, it's physiology, all the rest of it, but, you know, ultimately what I want to do, what I need to be, what I am, and getting separation between those two voices. So seeing yourself objectively, it gets into what is consciousness, how do you get into what psychologists have a word for it called cognitive diffusion, where you can see yourself from outside, but you can still, like, know what it feels like, but you're not them. We all know, if you've ever when you're watching sport on TV and something goes high or long, or our bodies kind of react as though we want the ball to go, you know. So we're physically responding to those things sort of all the time. And I don't know where I was going with that. I did have a point to it. I know.
Competing, separating.
Let's talk about the out of body.
Oh yeah, thank you. Gosh, I'm losing it. So cognitive diffusion. So any strategy you can get that gets separation, so actually meditative skills or passive attention training, which is called, what the scientific name really for it is great, because it teaches you the skill of noticing but not focusing on, right? I see you, but I'm back. So seeing your thoughts as a firework display. Wow, I noticed them and then they're gone. I'm on to the next one. I'm not getting led down some rabbit hole where that firework wants me to go mentally, cognitively, what I'm thinking. So I'm trying to get some separation. So meditation skills, there's some really new, really fascinating research in psychedelics at the moment and psychotherapy. I don't know if you've been following some of the patterns. Yeah,
so with the mushrooms, like microdosing.
Well, no, not
Is that
microdosing does something different.
okay?
So psychoactive
Okay.
trips, hallucinogenic trips, either psilocybin or MDMA, there's a bunch of them now that are probably on all of our Instagram feeds of like the new mental health thing. And a lot of that stuff is ahead of the science. But I will say the studies that we do have had remarkable quick turnarounds in treatment resistant issues like depression and anxiety. I'm trying this, and I have one of these therapist guided psychedelic sessions, and that part is important. I don't want to make this all about drug taking and psychedelics, but that area, that what's happening when you take psychedelics, you get something called atomization, which means that your thoughts almost like come out. It's really strange to think about this, but your consciousness, what you're thinking about on a daily basis, almost is like separate from your body. It's like an out of body experience. And any chance you get to have those sorts of experiences, and you have the wherewithal to think about how that relates to something that you're dealing with or struggling with or trying to improve on, versus I'm at Burning Man and fucking, rather than one of those examples. That's why the therapy assisted part is important, because they are talking to you and you're telling them what you're seeing or thinking, and they are guiding you to avoid things or walk towards things and so on. So that's another great way. But that cognitive diffusion, there's a whole school of psychotherapy devoted to just that principle. It's called acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, and it's phenomenal. I use it a lot. In our book, in fact, Lee, if you've had a chance to read it yet, there's an exercise with a chessboard and getting yourself to see you're the chess player and using the analogy of chess pieces in a board of things that you can control and your mindset, and you're the player. That's a ACT, cognitive diffusion exercise, for that very reason. The more you practice seeing yourself like you're sat in a little drone hovering alongside you as you're playing, oh, that's when so and so. See where she passed me then? Oh my God, I was so mad. I wanted to. So it really helps to have the more separation that you get, the better. So I would say, that having that, talking to yourself as a coach, get your shit together, you're acting like a child, whatever, is helpful, because you're getting that separation between what you think, those two kind of chimp voices, and your logical, smart person voice.
Before we run out of time with you, mate, so two AP questions, could be for both of you. So I need to tell you that Janine from Atlanta, Georgia wrote in, and she said, there's a lady that plays in our league that I just can't stand. She is so unlikable. She makes bad line calls, and everyone dreads playing against her. What can I do to adjust my attitude so that I can beat her and not get so frustrated?
I will give the infantile response, and you can give the logical adult response. My response would be just put her in the hospital. Just hit her every chance you got. No, it's hard when you're playing somebody that you can't stand, but a lot of it is like, for me anyway, on the court, it's you always play people, and whether so and so hooked you last week, or this person's notorious, everyone talks, oh, this person does bad line calls and blah 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 blah. And if you get caught up in the details of it all, or the person of it all, then you've lost the focus. And it's like, at the end of the day, yes, you're playing against two people, but essentially you're playing a yellow ball. It's a plastic ball. So you got to focus on the ball and not the people. And almost like I try to make them faceless. So I focus on the ball and the paddle and what's happening there, and I try not to give them any energy and attention or make them bigger than I already maybe did before I came on the match in my head. But the other thing you can do too is like compliment, like, oh my, that's an amazing forehand.
Oh, like reverse psychology. Right? So.
Yeah, like, that's amazing. You've been playing amazing. Just try to compliment them too, and like break them that way too. Because if you tell someone they're doing great, they're going to do terrible next week. It's like, I'm untouchable, and they start missing.
Mind games. Was never very
That's
good.
Right. Yeah, we haven't talked about psychology in the dark arts here for sport. No. There are plenty of those tactics, but I would agree with Lee there. That's Probably a good a strategy. I probably wouldn't go down the harm way. One other strategy is
just
to
from the
the
legal
goal.
standpoint.
The goal is still to play your own game, right? So the end result is the same, because she's like, they don't exist. It's harder when that person is, you've been paired with them, maybe. But it's also a reframing opportunity. So one of the things I would say is that it's the difficult times that make us as athletes, not everyone feels great with a, as we say in cycling, downhill with a tailwind, right? Everyone feels great. What makes you as an athlete is that how you cope with adversity and resilience. That's what increases resilience. And I would start to see those situations as adversity situations. I'm being sent this troubled person that's going to test every ounce of me, but by God, is it making me better at coping with people like that? So I need more experiences of awful people to become so good at awful people that it doesn't make any difference. Or I can even go one step, I can be a Jedi master at dealing with awful people. I can not only blank them out, I can make them be less awful. I can start modeling behavior, I can counsel them, I can talk to them aside, I can what have you. But if the goal is simply just to get through this without then, this has been sent to test me, this is a good opportunity, bring it on. The worse it is, the bitchier you are, the better. It's a test for me of how I'm going to cope, and that is a good thing.
That's amazing. And you mentioned Jedis, and we all love Star Wars, so now I'm completely inspired, and I can't wait till the next bitch tries to come on at me, and I'm going to give her hell. Oh my God. That was brilliant. Well, Janine from Atlanta, Georgia, there's your answer.
Thank you, Janine.
Wait. Alexa from Seattle, Washington asks, I'm a really consistent player, and I often win when I'm in any dink battles. So Simon, again, I don't know if you know about dinking.
Yeah, I do.
Right?
Yeah.
But I get really intimidated by some players who are hardcore, what we call bangers. So, you know, in the nicest possible non-English way, they hit the ball hard. I'm so scared that I'm often afraid to come to the kitchen. Any advice? I even bought protective eyewear, and I'm still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice for an intimidated player who wants to play her game, obviously is good at dinking and the touch game, but is a bit afraid of the bangers?
Yeah.
So is she good at dinking? Like this is where I go, right? It's like if I'm good at dinking, right, then I have, it's like, it's not just getting the ball. Sorry, Alexa, I mean, apparently you suck.
So sorry, Alexa.
But it's not just getting the ball over the net, it's getting the ball over the net in such a way that you can't attack the ball. And if you're able to attack the ball, I need to get out the way because that ball's going out. Now, a lot of the times when you're dinking in front of you, right, a good tactic is to take a step off that line and increase the distance, physical distance between your opponent and you, so that your reaction time, you have more reaction time. The closer I am to that kitchen line and I'm leaning in and that ball comes at me hard, I'm going to lean backwards, my hips go forward, I'm going to pop up the ball, and then I'm going to get hit with the next ball. But further back, I can lean into it, and I can step into it, and I can be a little bit more like one of those Roman warriors with a shield. You block this way, you don't block this way, right? But a lot of that comes with, are your dinks effective? And if they're able to attack your dinks, then obviously you're not a good dinker. You're just getting the ball over the net. And second of all, are you practicing against bangers to understand what shots you're hitting and how you can, you know, minimize the amount of times you get attacked? Right. Because honestly, like, the problem is not the banger. Like, sadly, the problem is you.
Right.
Sorry, Alexa, she's going to take up knitting.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, I mean, there's some good technical things. What about Alexa seeing, oh God, I've just watched my teammates play this person. And often actually maybe more so, she didn't specify if it was in women's or mixed, but I know this happens in mixed a lot. The guys hit the snot out there. I've been tagged numerous times, in the throat once, you know, by a bloke because I wasn't quick enough.
That ball was going out. That's on you.
I know. But the point is, you're so intimidated. Like it's quite, some women have really like shied away from mixed because it's so intimidating. Okay. Now, there's a level there, but I was just wondering, and because I was trying to give a psychological spin on this, is there an approach mentally you can take to that, or are we just talking physiologically? This is what we're up against.
Well, I think there's two things. I think the physiological thing I can do, and the psychological Simon can do because he's way better at it. But the physiological is what are you focusing on? You're focusing so much on the fact that this person is a banger that all you're going to see is banging, banging, banging. Instead of focusing on the ball, it's like look at it this way. If you focus on me doing this, by the time you recognize where the ball is, it's on you. That's too late, right? You're not focused on the ball, which is the important thing, right? If you see the ball, you'll see my paddle back here. You know I'm going to swing. But if you're focusing on the ball, that is all you're focusing on. If you focus on the human, by the time you get to see the ball and react to the ball, that ball is on you, and it's way too late. You need to pick up the ball before it crosses the net. The earlier you can pick up the ball, then the easier you're going to have a time, right? So that a lot of the time is we get so focused on the fact that, oh my God, I'm playing pen. She's going to hit the crap out of the ball. She's going to hit me all day long. I can't style. What am I doing? I just focus on your movement. The minute you move, I'm like, yeah, right? I go into this mode versus going, it's just a freaking plastic ball. Let me focus on the ball. And if my partner's popping it up or I'm popping it up, back the F up.
Yeah.
And that was actually a psychological explanation, Lee. I mean, it was great. I mean, it was underneath what you were describing is exactly what's happening. Is that, so imagine, it's a crude metaphor. So just imagine your brain or your eyes take 100 pictures a second, right? Or 100 pictures per unit of time, whatever, doesn't matter. That's all that your brain can process. And if I am, it can take pictures internally, right? So if I'm thinking about my holiday or that guy in the stand, it's still taking a picture of that. So if I, allocate my attention to 3 different things, or 4 different things, I've got 25 pictures, 25. So now I've only got 25 pictures to make sense of how and where that ball is coming to me. The moment you start to have all 100 pictures been taken on what we call task relevant cues, what you should be focusing on, when all pictures are taken on that one thing, it feels like time slows down. It feels like you have all the time in the world, right? The reason is because of how we're processing information. So I would say attentional retraining for that person, doing a lot of work on knowing what the cues are to focus on, so that you know where the ball's going. It might be you're trying to read the kind of stroke it is, the position, whatever. But everything is on that, not on, oh my God, they're a banger, I'm going to get whacked, oh my God, cover, right? You're just removing little snapshots to review what can go wrong. And so I guarantee that unless you have a neurological condition, you have the reaction time everyone has the potential of having a reaction time that's quick enough to respond to the hardest banging player that you could possibly find, right? We have the capacity to it. How do we know that? Because there are athletes who train that skill to be that good at it. In Formula One, you have, you've got, for example, your reaction. And if you look at, Formula One, athletics, you get about 200 milliseconds, right, to respond to the gun or it's a false start. Anything quicker than 200 milliseconds, they think you can't anticipate. We now know that that's not true. Like Formula One drivers can make decisions in their mirror. They have in about 100 to 120 milliseconds. So it's less than the blink of an eye. They can and they practice that by doing exercises. Now, that isn't, okay, some people might be born with some level of ability, but these are learned skills. And so if you do the same thing you've always done, expect it to be different, it won't be. You've got to start practicing that stuff.
So would you say that, sometimes Penn comes off the court, how'd you play? She's like, oh my God, I saw the ball this big, I was in the zone. Or when people talk about being in the zone or seeing the ball this big, it's that basically their focus has gone, all 100 snapshots have gone into the right spot every single time.
Right. So, you've had this flow state, right? And that's really to an example of being in that everything that I have enough time, I'm not thinking about anything else. And But to get into that, it's kind of tough, right? It's managing your physiology and that kind of stuff. But as a coach, I would be asking, okay, so we're playing, we know this guy's a banger we're playing against. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to freeze the video of him in a game. And I want you to tell me, you're at the net, what you think shot he's going to play. I want to know what well, I can tell by the way his hips are rotated or his back or whatever. Or the way that the last two, I think that this is going to happen. And the coach might go into far more detailed things, whether how you look at the spin of the ball or whatever. But it's those cues that you're paying attention. And a lot of athletes, I'm sure, they don't know. They're not even looking at the right thing, right? If I'm trying to hit or return 125-mile-an-hour serve on tennis, okay, I can stand, 18 feet behind the baseline, but I really need to be as close as possible, just because that triangle, how it's going to play out. So I've got to practice that ability, and we know you can train that so that it doesn't feel as quick as it looks or it used to feel to you. So there's something like quiet eye training. There's a bunch of other techniques as well that you can do to manage and practice that.
I don't want any of these podcasts to drop because I want to absorb all this
I
information.
know. Well, Sai, again.
And then be like, oh, did you not listen to our podcast? Sorry, it was a closed private list.
Yeah, exactly. We're not actually going to broadcast these now. We've decided just to keep.
That's right.
This is just for my mental. This is for my mental fortitude.
He's going to go and play like a complete bomb.